Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. For the next few minutes, I want you to give me your full attention, because what we are about to talk about is not small and it is not cosmetic, and it is not something to brush aside with the phrase, "Well, I'm just getting older." If your legs have started to feel heavier than they used to, if stairs now ask a question your body used to answer automatically, if getting out of a chair takes effort you never had to think about before, if you have caught yourself reaching for a wall, a railing, a countertop, not because you wanted to, but because somewhere deep down you no longer fully trust your own balance, then this message is for you. And here is the truth that almost nobody explains clearly enough. Your legs often weaken before the rest of you announces that aging has arrived. Not because your body has betrayed you, not because decline is your destiny, but because the muscles that keep you upright, stable, fast enough to catch yourself, and strong enough to move through your day are metabolically expensive tissue. They require protein, they require blood flow, they require anti-inflammatory support. They require the right signals, and if your diet stops sending those signals, your legs are often the first place where the bill comes due. That is why this matters so much. Sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass and function, is not just about looking thinner or feeling a little softer. It is associated with disability, hospitalization, loss of independence, and even increased mortality. And older adults with sarcopenia have significantly higher odds of falls and fractures than those without it. In other words, weak legs are not merely inconvenient. They can become life-changing if you ignore them long enough. But here's the part I want you to hold on to. Weakness is not always a one-way street. Muscle remains responsive much later in life than most people realize. Older adults still respond to better nutrition. They still respond to strength-building signals. They still respond to the right foods. The body does not stop listening. It simply becomes harder to persuade. And today I want to show you 6 foods that make that persuasion much easier. Not fantasy foods, not powders from the internet, not miracle capsules with labels full of promises and bottles full of disappointment. I'm talking about 6 real foods. Foods you can buy in an ordinary grocery store that can help support muscle protein synthesis, improve circulation to working muscles, lower the chronic inflammation that slowly erodes physical function, and give your legs a better chance to stay strong, stable, and reliable. And yes, we are going to count them down from 6 to 1, because the number 1 food on this list is the one most people underestimate, the one many older adults still use too little, and the one that quietly makes several of the other foods work even better. But before we get there, I want to ask you something personal. How old are you, and what have you noticed in your legs? Do they feel weaker, less steady, more tired? Do stairs feel steeper than they used to? Do you avoid long walks now? Have you had a near fall that shook your confidence, even if you never told anyone about it? Leave a comment below and tell me. I mean that sincerely. This channel is not built for statistics in the abstract. It is built for real people with real bodies and real stories. And when you share your experience, you are often helping someone else realize they are not imagining what they feel. Now, let's begin. We are counting down from helpful to powerful, from supportive to truly strategic. Number 6, eggs. I know some of you have been listening to arguments about eggs for half your life. Too much cholesterol, too many yolks, too risky, too rich. And for many older adults, those old warnings did something deeply unfortunate. They pushed one of the most efficient, affordable, muscle-up supporting foods out of the very stage of life when it is often needed most. Here is why eggs deserve a place on this list. As we age, our muscles become less responsive to protein. Researchers call this anabolic resistance. That phrase sounds technical, but the meaning is simple. The same meal that once easily helped your body repair and build muscle no longer creates the same response. Your muscles become harder to impress. That means older adults often need not just more attention to protein, but better quality protein. And eggs provide exactly that. Egg protein is highly digestible. It contains all the essential amino acids, and one of those amino acids, leucine, is especially important because leucine acts like a trigger for muscle protein synthesis. It helps tell muscle tissue it is time to repair, it is time to rebuild, it is time to maintain, end quote. One egg provides roughly half a gram of leucine, That may not sound dramatic until you understand what the aging muscle is looking for. It is not looking for random calories. It is looking for a meaningful biochemical reason to stay alive and active. Eggs provide that reason. And there is another point most people miss. The yolk is not the enemy. In fact, the yolk contains a significant portion of the egg's protein along with nutrients and lipids that may matter for how the body uses the whole food. Throwing away the yolk because of old fear-based advice is a little like paying for the orchestra and then dismissing the string section before the concert starts. Years ago, I spoke with a woman in her 70s who told me that breakfast had gradually turned into toast and tea. Easy, light, harmless. That was her word, harmless. But harmless can become useless when your muscles are underfed. She was not starving. She was simply no longer giving her body a strong enough morning signal. We changed that. 2 eggs in the morning, sometimes 3, depending on the rest of the day, paired with fruit or vegetables instead of refined bread. Several weeks later, she did not describe a miracle. She described something better. She said, "I don't feel so fragile before noon anymore." That is the kind of change I care about, not hype function. For practical use, eggs work especially well at breakfast because they help distribute protein earlier in the day, and that matters. Older adults often eat too little protein in the morning, too little at lunch, and then try to make up for it at dinner, long after the muscles could have used the help. Soft-boiled, poached, gently scrambled, or cooked in a little olive oil, eggs are one of the cleanest ways to start telling your body that today is not a day for surrender. Now, let's go to number 5, wild salmon. If eggs are one of the cleanest muscle-building signals, salmon is one of the most elegant examples of a food doing several jobs at once. It brings protein, it brings omega-3 fatty acids, and depending on the fish, it can bring meaningful vitamin D as well. Let's talk first about the omega-3s because this is where salmon becomes more than healthy fish. As we age, chronic low-grade inflammation becomes part of the background noise of the body. You may not feel it directly the way you feel a cut or a bruise, but it is there. It affects joints. It affects blood vessels, it affects insulin sensitivity, and it affects muscle. The aging muscle does not just face the problem of understimulation, it also faces a less friendly internal environment, more inflammatory signaling, more oxidative stress, more reasons to shrink, weaken, and recover slowly. Omega-3s help push back on that. Research suggests they may support muscle protein synthesis, improve the environment around muscle tissue, and in some studies, they have been associated with gains in strength and thigh muscle volume in older adults. That does not mean salmon is a steroid. It means it is one of the few ordinary foods that supports muscle from more than one angle at once. Then there is vitamin D. Low vitamin D status is common in older adults, and vitamin D matters for more than bones. Muscle cells respond to it as well. When levels are too low, balance, lower extremity function, and physical performance can all suffer. And while no single food solves deficiency on its own, fatty fish gives you a meaningful dietary source in a world where many older adults are running short. What I especially love about salmon for this topic is that it speaks to a symptom many people mention before they use the word weakness. They say, "My legs just feel tired," or "they don't have the same life in them," or "I can walk but I don't feel springy anymore." That description matters. Not all weakness feels like collapse. Sometimes it feels like diminished reserve. Less engine, less responsiveness, less rebound. That is where salmon shines. I remember a man in his late 60s telling me that he did not feel old until his walks became negotiations. He could still do them, he just no longer enjoyed them. The rhythm was gone, the ease was gone. His dinners were mostly low fat, low protein, and frankly forgettable. We brought fatty fish into the week consistently. Not once in a while, consistently alongside more deliberate protein overall and simple resistance work. He later said something that stayed with me. My walks stopped feeling like chores. Again, not magic, but momentum. If you use salmon, aim for it a few times per week if your budget allows. Sardines, trout, and mackerel can also play in this same category. And when possible, choose versions that are minimally processed. The goal here is not fish-shaped convenience food. The goal is a clean source of protein and omega-3 support that your muscles can actually use. Now, number 4. Dark leafy greens, spinach, arugula, kale, Swiss chard. These foods almost never get enough respect in conversations about leg strength because people hear greens and think digestion, fiber, or general health. They do not think mobility. They should. One of the most overlooked reasons legs begin to feel less capable with age is not just that muscles lose tissue, it is that the delivery system becomes less impressive. Blood flow, oxygen transfer, nutrient transport, cellular signaling, all of that matters. And dark leafy greens help on that front because many of them are naturally rich in dietary nitrates. Now, let me translate that into plain English. Dietary nitrates can be converted in the body into nitric oxide, and nitric oxide helps blood vessels relax and open. Think of it as helping your circulation become a better host. Better blood flow does not guarantee strong muscles, but poor blood flow makes strong muscles much harder to maintain. In older women, higher dietary nitrate intake has been associated with stronger grip strength and better physical function. And much of that nitrate came from vegetables, with spinach making a notable contribution. So when you eat nitrate-rich greens, you are not just checking a Be Healthy box. You are improving the chemistry that helps working tissue receive what it needs. Then there is magnesium, another quiet player that deserves more attention than it gets. Many older adults are not getting enough, and magnesium matters for muscle function. If you are someone whose legs cramp at night, whose calves tighten too easily, whose feet curl or tense or complain after activity, that is worth paying attention to. I once heard an older gentleman describe his legs by saying, "They don't feel weak." Exactly. They feel stiff and uncooperative. That is a brilliant phrase because it reminds us that mobility is not just force. It is the quality of contraction and relaxation. It is whether the muscle behaves like a partner or like a stubborn machine. Greens help make the system more cooperative. And there is a practical trick here that too many people miss. Do not treat greens as punishment. Do not steam them into sadness. Do not serve them plain and wonder why nobody wants them. Cook them gently. Add olive oil, add garlic, add lemon, add eggs, add salmon, add something that makes them not just medicinal but desirable. The body benefits from consistency, and consistency becomes much easier when food is actually enjoyable. Right here, before we go any further, let me pause for 1 second. If this is already giving you a clearer picture of why your legs may be feeling different, press the like button. It helps more people find this kind of evidence-based aging content. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now. Every week we talk about how to stay stronger, steadier, and more independent with age, using practical science, not empty slogans. Alright, now we move into the top 3. Number 3. Greek yogurt. Most people think of yogurt as a snack, something small, something light, something almost decorative in the diet. But plain Greek yogurt, especially the higher protein varieties, is one of the most efficient muscle-up supporting foods many older adults are simply not using strategically enough. Here is what makes it special. First, the protein. Greek yogurt is concentrated. It brings a substantial protein load in a relatively easy-to-eat form, and that matters enormously for older adults who do not always have a big appetite, who may not want a large piece of meat, or who find chewing more tiring than they used to. That last point is not trivial. A food can be theoretically excellent and still fail in real life if the person won't eat it regularly. Greek yogurt solves that problem beautifully. It is soft, it is accessible, it can be breakfast, lunch, recovery food, or evening protein. It asks very little from the eater while offering a lot to the muscle. Second, fermentation changes the story. Research suggests that yogurt protein may stimulate muscle protein synthesis differently, sometimes more effectively than unfermented milk, in part because of how fermentation changes the structure and digestion of the proteins. In older adults dealing with anabolic resistance, that is not a small detail. That is the difference between I ate protein and my body really responded to it. Then there is the gut-muscle axis, which sounds like a phrase from the future, but is already a serious area of study. Your gut is not just a tube where food passes through. It is an active ecosystem, and that ecosystem influences inflammation, nutrient handling, and metabolic signaling. Fermented dairy introduces live cultures and metabolites that may help create a healthier internal environment. And some evidence suggests probiotic support can benefit muscle mass and strength. In simpler language, Greek yogurt does not just feed your body, it may help your body become better at using what you feed it. I think that is one reason this food often surprises people. They expect protein. They do not expect efficiency. They do not expect the digestive system to become part of the muscle conversation. But it is. There was a widow I once spoke with who had slowly drifted into a pattern that is painfully common after loss. Coffee in the morning, something quick at lunch, crackers in the afternoon, soup at night. She was not choosing weakness, she was choosing ease, and ease over time had become undernourishment. One of the first things we changed was not dramatic. We added plain Greek yogurt daily, usually with berries, seeds, or chopped nuts depending on the day. She later told me it was the first change that felt both realistic and sustainable. Not because it solved everything, because it made nourishing herself possible again. That is what good foods do. They do not merely look impressive on paper, they fit into life. If you use Greek yogurt, choose plain whenever possible and flavor it yourself. Too many commercial versions are little more than dessert. Wearing a healthy costume. Add cinnamon, add berries, add chopped walnuts, add ground flax. Build it into something your legs would thank you for if they could speak. Now, number 2, beets. This is where some of you raise an eyebrow, and I understand why. If I asked 100 people to name foods for stronger legs, beets would not make most top 10 lists. But they should at least make the conversation, because beets are one of the richest common food sources of dietary nitrate. And nitrate is one of the few food-based compounds that has shown measurable short-term effects on muscle performance in older adults. That deserves your attention. In studies on older men and women, nitrate-rich beetroot juice has improved muscle speed and power. In one trial, a single dose increased maximum knee extension speed by about 11% and power by about 4%. In another, short-term daily use maintained improvements in muscle speed and power in adults, aged 65 to 79. Now, let me be very clear so we stay honest. This does not mean beets rebuild years of lost muscle overnight. It does not mean you eat a beet and suddenly bound up the stairs like you are 45 again. What it means is this. Beets may help your circulatory signaling and muscle performance in a way that is unusually immediate for a food. And for older adults, muscle power matters. Not just strength, power, the ability to generate force quickly. That is what helps you catch yourself. That is what helps you rise from a chair without rocking back and forth. That is what helps the first step feel decisive instead of tentative. That is what helps you clear a curb, react to a stumble, or move before balance disappears. A lot of people focus on muscle size because size is visible. But in daily life, speed of force matters just as much and sometimes more. That is why beets belong this high on the list. I remember speaking with a woman who told me that her legs did not feel powerless. They felt delayed. What a revealing word. Delayed. As if the message from brain to body had to travel through mud before the muscles answered. Beets are not a neurological cure, of course, but the nitrate to nitric oxide pathway may improve the vascular side of that equation enough for some people to feel more responsive around activity, and here is how I like to use them strategically. Not as a side dish that appears once every 3 months at a holiday table as a recurring performance food. Roasted beets with lunch. Beetroot blended into a smoothie with citrus. Beetroot juice used before a walk, before a rehab session, before leg work, before a day when you know you will be more active. One caution though, because I care about telling you the truth, not just the exciting part. Not every nitrate study shows every benefit people hope for. Some research shows improvements in speed and power without showing improvements in fatigue or recovery. So this is not a cure-all. It is a tool, a genuinely promising one, but still a tool. And now we arrive at number 1, extra virgin olive oil. If you were expecting a powder, a supplement, or some obscure longevity ingredient with a name nobody can pronounce, I want you to stay with me here, because extra virgin olive oil earns this spot for a reason that is more important than novelty. It is not number 1 because it contains the most protein. It is number 1 because it makes the whole system more favorable to muscle survival. That is a different kind of power. As we grow older, one of the biggest enemies of mobility is not just under-eating protein. It is living inside a body that is slightly inflamed all the time, chronic low-grade inflammation becomes part of the terrain, and when the terrain worsens, muscles do not recover as well, blood vessels do not behave as well, and movement becomes more costly. Extra virgin olive oil helps change that terrain. It is rich in monounsaturated fats and polyphenols. Those polyphenols are not decoration. They are biologically active compounds. One of them, oleoanthal, has been shown to inhibit the same inflammatory enzymes COX-1 and COX-2 that ibuprofen targets. That does not mean olive oil is ibuprofen in a bottle. It means nature built a food with surprisingly sophisticated anti-inflammatory chemistry. And in the context of aging muscle, that matters. Olive oil is also central to the Mediterranean dietary pattern, which has repeatedly been associated with lower inflammation in older adults. Research on Mediterranean-style eating suggests better muscle mass and physical function overall, even if the evidence is stronger for function and inflammatory tone than for claiming olive oil alone prevents sarcopenia. But there is another reason I put olive oil at number 1. It amplifies the value of other foods. Think about it. Greens contain compounds that are better used in the presence of fat. Eggs and vegetables become more satisfying and more absorbable when paired with it. Fish becomes part of a coherent anti-inflammatory pattern when it is prepared with it. In other words, olive oil is not just a food. It is an ecosystem builder, and high-quality extra virgin olive oil is not all the same. This is a place where details matter, freshness matters, storage matters, dark glass matters. The peppery sensation in the throat that some people notice with robust olive oils, that slight sting is often a sign of the polyphenol oleoanthal. The clearer the bottle, the warmer the shelf, the longer the oil has been sitting there fading in the light, the less of that living chemistry you may be getting. I tell people this all the time. Do not buy olive oil the way you buy lamp oil. Buy it like produce, because that is closer to what it is. Pressed fruit juice with a shelf life. Look for extra virgin. Preferred dark bottles. Check harvest dates when available. Once opened, use it. Do not save it for a mythical special occasion while it quietly declines in the cabinet. I once spoke with a man in his 80s who had spent decades proudly avoiding fat. Everything in his diet was lean, dry, reduced, restricted, and somehow joyless. He thought discipline was protecting him. In reality, he had stripped a major anti-inflammatory ally out of his meals. The moment we added olive oil back generously, intelligently, consistently, his diet stopped fighting his body and started cooperating with it. He later said, "Food started feeling like help again." That sentence stayed with me, because help is exactly what many older adults need. Not more rules, not more fear. Help. So use olive oil on your vegetables, over beans, with eggs, with fish, in soups, in dressings, over lentils, over roasted beets, over spinach. Let it become normal. Let it become daily. Let it become part of the architecture of how you stay upright. And now let's bring all of this together. If your legs have been weakening, do not hear this list as 6 isolated tips. Hear it as a system. Eggs tell muscle to build. Salmon supports muscle and lowers the inflammatory burden that makes maintenance harder. Leafy greens improve the blood flow chemistry that helps working tissue get what it needs. Greek yogurt delivers accessible, efficient protein and may support the gut-muscle connection. Beets improve the nitrate pathway that can help muscle speed and power. And extra virgin olive oil helps create an internal environment where all of that works better. That is the real power here. Not one food, a pattern, a signal repeated often enough that your body begins to hear it clearly again. And I need you to remember something very important. You are not trying to win a bodybuilding contest. You are trying to protect your life. Your real goals are not abstract. You want to stand up without hesitation, walk without fear, climb stairs without negotiating with each step. Carry groceries without wondering whether your knees will object. Get off the toilet without using your arms like emergency equipment. Travel, garden, dance, play with grandchildren, move through your own home without that quiet voice in the back of your mind asking, "What if I fall?" That voice changes people. It makes them smaller before their bodies actually become smaller. It steals confidence before it steals strength. And that is why this conversation matters so much, because sometimes the first thing older adults lose is not muscle, it is trust. Trust in their own legs. Trust in their own balance. Trust in whether their body will answer when life asks it to move. I do not want that for you. And more importantly, I do not want you assuming it is unavoidable when much of it is responsive to how you eat and how you train. Now, one important truth before we close. Food is powerful, but food works best when it joins movement. The research is very clear that older adults do best when nutrition and strength-building activity work together. Protein matters more when muscles are being used. Muscle responds better when the diet supplies enough raw material. So do not hear this as permission to eat well and then sit perfectly still. Use your legs. Walk daily. Stand more often. Practice rising from a chair without using your hands when it is safe. Do simple resistance work if you are able, and then feed the muscles you are asking to stay with you. That is how you change the direction of the story. Not with panic, with repetition. One breakfast, one lunch, one grocery trip, one walk, 1 week of consistency, then another and another. If you have kidney disease, major digestive disease, swallowing difficulties, or you take medications that require dietary caution, have the conversation with your doctor or dietitian. That is wisdom, not weakness. But for most people listening to me today, the basic message remains beautifully simple. Give your legs better building material. Give your body less inflammatory friction. Give your circulation more help. Give your muscles a reason to stay. The body is older, yes, but older is not the same as finished. That distinction may change your future. If you are not subscribed yet, subscribe right now. Every week, I bring you practical science-based strategies to help you stay stronger, sharper, and more independent as the years move forward. And now, I want to hear from you. Which of these 6 foods are you going to start with first? Eggs, salmon, leafy greens, Greek yogurt, beets, olive oil? Tell me in the comments, and if your legs have been trying to tell you something lately, tell me that too. I read those comments, and this community is stronger because people show up honestly. Until next time, eat with purpose, move with intention, and never assume your best years of strength are behind.